Hey friends, it's Sarah, and every year I make a video at the beginning of the year about all of the books in the upcoming year that I'm super excited to read. So I posted a 2025 one in January, and you can check that out if you want to know what I'm looking forward to this first half of the year. But I figured it'd be fun to see if I actually read and enjoyed the books that I was so looking forward to. So even though it is a quarter of the way through the year, I thought I'd look back on my 2024 most anticipated books and see how many I actually read, if they were actually good, if I liked them or not. So I pulled these books from my 2024 most anticipated reads video, which I will link up top if you want to check out. But I'm not going to give like a huge description. I'll just give kind of like a 1 or 2 sentence description of each book, because otherwise it would be incredibly long. So first up we have Last Call at the Local by Grunder Ruiz. This one I read February 22nd and I gave it 3.5 stars. This is the third book by Grunder Ruiz that I've read and that she's published. And it's about an American singer-songwriter who has ADHD, and she helps an Irish pub owner with OCD revitalize his pub. I really appreciate the portrayal of OCD and ADHD in this, but I didn't really feel the chemistry between the characters. Like, it is a romance technically, and I love the Irish setting and the characters really interesting, but I mean, it's hard to remember. This was all over a year ago, but I think I just didn't feel like their connection quite as strongly as I liked them as individual characters, if that makes sense. All right, the second book on my list was Emily Wilde's Map to the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. This was 4 stars and I read it January 19th. It's the second book in the Emily Wilde series. I loved it just as much as the first book. The world building keeps expanding. The characters are just forever charming, and I love the action and the plot in this book. I think it's a really great it's kind of categorized as like cozy fantasy, but there's like a fair amount of plot and action in it, so I'm not sure if it quite fits that. But it's heartwarming, it's great. I love the characters. I love the diary style of it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of when I used to read the Dear Canada books as a child. So that's fun too. And we love curmudgeonly Emily Wilde. She's just trying to do her fairy science, her fairy research, and everything's getting in the way of that. So just another great installment in the series, and definitely lived up to my anticipation. All right, then I was really looking forward to The Lily of Ludgate Hill by Mimi Matthews, and this one ended up being just 3 stars for me. I read it May 5th, and I just didn't enjoy it as much as the first 2 books in the Bells of London series. This is a second chance Victorian romance that follows Anne Deverell, who's been in mourning with her mother for like 6 years since the death of her father, and she's kind of finally had enough of this extended mourning period, and she's ready to take charge of her life. She reconnects with Felix Hart, to whom she was secretly engaged before her father's passing, and they kind of like strike a deal to help each other out with, I can't remember what, but they strike a deal and then end up obviously rekindling their romance. Anne was never really my favorite character from the other books, so I think maybe that was part of why I didn't enjoy this one quite as much. It was also less of a romance than the others. It's kind of dealing more with like Anne and her grief and trying to kind of extract herself from her mother's control. Well, obviously, like, she still loves her mother and wants to help her, but she's a grown woman and she needs to live her own life. So that part of it was good. It just wasn't quite as good as like The Siren of Sussex, for instance. Next up is Beasts of War by Ayana Gray. This one, again, was like 3 stars. I read it May 14th. It's the 3rd and final book in the Beasts of Prey series, which is a YA fantasy series where 2 black teenagers band together to enter the magical greater jungle and hunt down a creature called the Shaitani that's threatening their homes. That's kind of like the plot of the first book, and it goes from there. It's inspired by various African myths, and was really, really good. For this one in particular, though, the conflict that like the whole book had been leading up to was resolved in like 10 pages, and it felt really quick to me, considering this is like a trilogy of, I don't know, I think they're like 400 or 500 pages each. There also seemed to be a lot of convenient resolutions to the different issues the characters were running into as well. And overall, I really did enjoy the series. I was content with how it ended, but I think the last book felt a little bit rushed. compared to the other two. Okay, up next is Bunt by Ngozi Ukazu and Mad Rupert. This was 5 stars. I love Ngozi's stuff. She's one who wrote Check Please. I read everything she writes and draws, and this one I read June 1st. It's a graphic novel about an art college student who loses her scholarship, and in order to be able to afford her tuition, she finds this little like loophole. I think it's technically for like an athletic scholarship, where if she can create a softball team that wins at least 1 game that year, then the entire team will get free tuition. Of course, everyone that she knows and recruits is a non-athletic, cash-strapped art student, so this seems to be a nearly impossible task. I loved it. I love a like ragtag team of friends. I love the art style in this. It just hit all the like sweet spots. It was really good, and I will continue to read everything Ngozi has her hands on because I think she's incredibly talented and I love what she comes up with. Next book on the list is The Knowing by Tanya Talaga. This is a nonfiction book about the history of residential schools in Canada, interwoven with the author's deep dive into her own family's history with that residential school program. I do own a copy, obviously, but I still have to read it. I did start it. I got 122 pages in, but it's pretty dense, so I put it down for the time being. It's going to take a minute. Yeah, there's like obviously lots of very intense issues in here. And it's like a pretty heavy nonfiction book. So I'll get to it eventually. I have a copy, so it's there when I feel ready to dive into it. Up next was A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. This is a cozy fantasy / romance about a witch who is trying to earn her magic powers back while helping her aunt run an enchanted inn. She meets a cold historian who might be able to help her get her powers, and as they work together, of course, they start to develop feelings. It is like primarily a romance. This book's release date was pushed back for like the 2nd or 3rd time to July of this year, so obviously I have not read it yet, and I look forward to reading it in 2025. Another one that I have not read yet is Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrun. This is a sapphic romance about 2 ex-childhood friends who are forced to take their favorite former English teacher and current mentor on an end-of-life road trip together. So they're going all the way across America. As I said, I still haven't read this one, but it sounds really interesting. It sounds cute. It's, friends to not quite enemies, I guess, like strangers to, I'm assuming, friends, lovers. I don't know, but it sounds interesting. Then we have Funny Story by Emily Henry, like 4.5, 5 stars. I read it April 27th, which I'm pretty sure is like the day it came out. It is like my iciest take that Emily Henry is great and I love everything she writes. But this follows Daphne and Milo, who are forced into being roommates when their respective ex-partners dump them for each other. And then they decide that the best revenge would be to pretend to be together themselves in hopes of kind of winning their exes back and making them realize what they're missing out on. It's an Emily Henry take on fake dating. I ate it right up. I've got tons of little tabs in here. If my memory serves me correctly, I think I felt the pacing was like a little bit weird, but it's also possible that I just read it too quickly because I read it in like a day, and it definitely needs a reread. I just kind of actually want to reread all of the Emily Henry books before her newest one comes out in like a couple weeks now, which is kind of an ambitious thing because I have another TBR going on. But I might be able to do it. I don't know. If you want to see me read all the Emily Henrys and try and rank them against each other, let me know down in the comments and maybe I can make that happen. Up next is Heavenly Tyrant by Xiran J. Zhao. This is the sequel to Iron Widow, which is a YA kind of like mecha apocalypse fantasy book, which was excellent and I loved it. Obviously, I own a copy of this one, and yet I still need to read it because it is real chonky. I did start, I think I got like 10 pages in and was like, I don't really remember what happened at the end of Iron Widow because it came out 4 or 5 years ago. Like I think it was a 2020 or 2021 release. So it's been a minute. And so I need to reread that so I can read this one. I had a coworker who said this one is like quite different. I mean, even the author themselves said like it's a very different book to Iron Widow. It's much more like political fantasy, and there's some explicit scenes in it apparently. So I don't know. I'm a little scared of this one, to be honest. It's chonky. It's like, it's over 500 pages. It's very different from the first one. I'm scared, but I'm hoping to get to it, I think, sometime this year because I love the first one so much and I've been looking forward to this for 5 years, so it's gotta get read. And like, I had pre-ordered it when it was first announced, and then its date got pushed back several times, and so I kept getting emails being like, hey, so sorry, your book's publishing date was pushed back like another 6 months. Hey, so sorry, it won't be coming for yet another 6 months. Sorry, maybe next year. So I've been waiting a long time for it, so I just need to read it. Get over my fear. Just give it a go. The next book on my list was Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. This one I did read. I gave it 4 stars and I read it June 2025. This is a reimagining of the story of Ganga, the goddess of the river. She is cursed to become mortal, and then when she finally manages to free herself from that curse, she is forced to abandon her mortal son, Devavrata, who has to carry the legacy of her curse. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as Vaishnavi Patel's first book, Kaikei, but it was still like a really cool myth retelling. It's a very like emotional story about the complicated relationships between mother and son, as well as gods and mortals. I thought it was really good. I will continue to read whatever this author publishes because I really enjoyed her writing style, but just didn't quite hit the same highs as her first book, which I think I gave 5 stars or 4.5 stars. This one dealt more with like motherhood, and that's a topic that interests me a little bit less. The next book is There is a Door in This Darkness by KRistin Cashore. Obviously, I got an arc of this book and I gave it 4 stars. I read it September 18th. But this is a YA book that is set in 2020, and it follows Wilhelmina, who is dealing with the loss of one of her aunts, and then also all the horrifying things that happened in the past 4 years. So like COVID, Trump election, new Trump election. I talked about this one in another video. But this was like too soon for a pandemic book for me. I read it and I was just like, oh, all the trauma of the past 4 years. It is like incredibly accurate, and it really felt like the time that it's portraying. I was like, yeah, I remember having these kinds of conversations with people, even though I'm Canadian and I was not, you know, obviously voting in the American election. I remember it being like all encompassing and COVID being really scary, and it's still really scary. And then I also read this when the 2024 elections were happening in the States, and it just felt like same thing over again. So I think it was just a bad time to read this for me. And I think it was really well done, hence the 4 stars. But like, I didn't enjoy it as much just because I was like, it's too well done. It's too accurate. I'm not ready for this. So, like, good job, KRistin Cashore, but I think if it had been, like, 10 years later or something, it would have been better. It would have been a better reading experience for me. All right, so the final book was Past, Present, Future by Rachel Lynn Solomon, another 4-star read. I read this July 1st. This is the sequel to Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, and it follows Neil and Rowan as they go off to different universities and they have to navigate a long-distance relationship as well as, like, their own first years of university. It was such an honest portrayal of the difficulties of growing in a relationship together, especially in like a long distance relationship. And I really related to some of the mental health struggles that Neil goes through in this book. I had a rough time when I went to university, and I felt very close to Neil in this and the way that he was having a rough time. So I thought it was a really good follow-up. It was a little less romantic than the first one. It's more realistic, but it was really good too. I liked it a lot. So, out of those 13 books, I read 9 of them. One of them still hasn't been released, and I have 2 of them on my physical TBR that I'll hopefully get to this year sometime. I rated them an average of 3.9 stars, which is actually slightly lower than my overall yearly average of 4 stars, but still like pretty good. So I feel like I have a good grasp on like what books I should be looking forward to and I will enjoy. So pretty good, not bad at all. I'm hoping to have a similar success rate with my 2025 most anticipated. I think I've actually read some of them already, so that's great. Let me know if you read any of these books, your thoughts on them down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Now go read a book. Yeah, you got a sharp claw somewhere, and I have just human skin that cannot very easily absorb your sharp claws. You're tearing up my jeans, girl. You're tearing up my jeans. I didn't read. Well, I did read actually, but that's not the plot, Snibbies. We've lost the plot. Now, Snibbies, are you ready to go?